Hi there and welcome. My name's Kody from Percipient, and today we'll be walking through the Sage Intacct 2026 release 1 of the year. So during this video, we'll take a look at the highlights of those releases and focus on what actually changes for finance teams day to day. One thing we've noticed is this release is about making sure those processes you already run, payables, receivables, reconciliation, purchasing, smarter, more automated and easier to control. So first off, we have something that's really important. This release has introduced an allowed email address to help organizations ensure that your outbound emails originate from approved domains. So why this matters, many finance processes now rely on system generated communications, invoices, remittances, workflow notifications. This gives your admin a way to validate which sender addresses in Intacct should be used, and it just helps reduce any spoofing or phishing attacks. The system will automatically compile those addresses used in recent months, and your admin can review or refine a list without changing the behavior for users. This is about governance, it's not a workflow change. Next up, we have one of the more operational updates is the general ledger accounts reconciliations. So this allows finance team to match your offsetting debit and credit entries directly in Intacct. So previously, teams have exported clearing accounts into Excel to prove balance matching. What happens now? You can match those transactions inside the general ledger, track matched versus unmatched activity through a dedicated report. And the value for this is obviously a faster month end, a clear audit trail of how balances were cleared, less spreadsheet dependency. And this is for those balance sheet accounts, things like your accruals, your intercompany clearing, or your suspense accounts. So right now, I'll take us into the system. We'll take a look at how that works. So we go to the general ledger, all GL account reconciliations. And here you can see we still have to select the entity. We'll choose the accounts. In my case, I will pick accruals. I'd like to see my matched and non-matched items. Press apply. And now you can see here available listed all of the non-matched or matched items. So you can see I've got 2 here that are matched. What that has done is tagged it with the document sequencer. You can see the relevant journal that it's applied to. That's how it looks in the system. Next, we have a couple of updates in accounts receivable. So first of all, accounts receivable has now introduced 3 more fields to exist on the customer record. This is the health score, health status, and churn risk. So these don't actually calculate anything themselves, but those are designed to receive insight from your CRMs or external system. The reason this matters is because finance can now see operational risk indicators alongside that financial data rather than work in isolation. We've got health status escalated, a health score, and whether it's at risk for churn. The system is now being built to handle that more operational workflow. So it's really quite useful to see that. Another area in accounts receivable, which also does apply in accounts payable, is the ability to receive notifications when accounts payable or accounts receivable transactions fail to generate. Previously, these features could really go unnoticed until reconciliation. Now you can assign backup recipients so that automation continues to be monitored even if ownership changes. Another release that I'd really like to highlight here is the accounts payable, where we now have the ability to post accounts payable advances at the top level of a multi-entity structure. So before, the finance teams had to move into each entity, process those deposits and prepayments. Now, central teams can manage advances without switching context, and you can align that AP with the accounts receivable functionality. But there are a couple of areas in accounts payable automation that I would like to talk about. So just to make you aware, if you are using accounts payable automation that is Sage dedicated, so it is not a marketplace partner or it's not an integration, your dedicated accounts payable automation email domain will have updated over the weekend of the 13th to the 16th as part of an enhanced email experience, so designed to support additional automation capabilities, and improve how incoming documents are handled. So this update enables features such as auto forwarding, broader support for file formats, and improved notification handling when documents cannot be processed successfully. Make sure that if your suppliers are sending those emails directly to their inbox box, that they're notified of that, and also that you inform your internal teams too. The next enhancement in accounts payable automation and focuses on reducing the amount of manual intervention needed when coding transactions. Sage Intacct can now predict tax details for automated transactions by analysing historical postings and supplier patterns, so applying expected tax treatments automatically where appropriate. What this means in practice is when an invoice is captured through automation, the system now will just extract the value. It can also populate the associated tax information based on how similar transactions have been previously processed. For finance teams, if you are using accounts payable automation, this just removes another repetitive step in the review process. So instead of re-entering the same tax treatment for your suppliers, the system applies that logic consistently whilst allowing users to review and confirm before posting. Best practice in this is to allow the automation to handle those repeatable scenarios whilst keeping review of those workflows in place for exceptions, supporting a move towards validation rather than that manual entry. And the next update is in accounts payable automation with purchasing. So now we're in the system. This next update brings the line level matching into general availability. So this strengthens how Sage Intacct validates supplier invoices against those purchasing transactions. With this capability, AP automation can match your supplier documents directly to the source purchasing transaction and populate those transaction lines using the data captured from the supplier document itself. It can also flag differences or price between what was ordered and what was invoiced. Previously, teams have often needed to compare those details manually, reviewing PDFs against purchase orders to identify discrepancies. Now the system performs that comparison and highlights where the intention is needed. So you can now see there's an exception summary, exceptions, and it will highlight what the line issue is. If it's an additional line, do we need that? There's the invoice. If we scroll all the way down, and there are no exceptions because it's correct. But in a real world scenario, we do see it a lot. Invoices arrive with price variations or unexpected lines. Intacct can identify the variance, present it for review, rather than requiring users to search for it themselves. This allows finance and procurement teams to focus on resolving exceptions rather than validating every transaction, helping stream that matching process whilst maintaining the oversight. Best practice in this as well is to sort of define appropriate tolerance levels and review workflows so that minor acceptable differences don't slow your processing whilst ensuring meaningful discrepancies are captured and reviewed. The objective really is not to remove control entirely, but to shift effort away from routine checking of everything to the managing transactions that genuinely require intervention. And finally, we'll take a look at cash management. We're seeing a focused improvement on the accuracy of your bank reconciliations, particularly in situations where fees or charges are deducted as part of a payment process. If you have your bank charges and interest, which are set at your entity level, you can now use a document number that is built into the field of the bank charges and interest page, and that same reference can now flow through to pages and reports that display document numbers. This is built to create a shared identifier that can also be used during reconciliation to link related entries more precisely. So in practical terms, yes, we've seen modern payment services often deduct processing fees before funds reach your account. So instead of receiving one clean payment, you might see your net deposit alongside a separate charge. Historically, that means doing multiple lines manually. With this enhancement, finance teams can use a consistent document number. So, for example, it's your reference provided on your bank statement to connect the customer receipt to the associated fee. But that shared reference allows Intacct to recognise those entries as belonging together, improving and matching accuracy and reducing the need for manual adjustments. There are a couple of areas in the system that are in early adopter or beta testing at the moment, and some of those really do bolster what we already have built into the system. What we've seen in this release is the ability for line level approvals in AP automation for purchasing. This is an early adopter and this is the next step. To wrap things up, the 2026 release 1 is really about strengthening the processes you have and that you already rely on rather than introducing entirely new workflows. So we've looked across the general ledger, accounts payable, purchasing, cash management. The update focuses on how those transactions are validated, matched, and monitored. And we can see that the aim is to reduce manual check-in, improve accuracy in areas like reconciliations and invoice processing, and give finance teams that clear visibility into relationships between transactions.
And that brings us to the end of this overview. What we've covered today is intentionally high level, just a snapshot of the key updates and new capabilities. Every organisation uses the system differently, so if anything you see here is relevant to your processes, reporting or future plans, please do reach out to the team. We're very happy to talk through your specific requirements in more detail. We'll also be hosting a live webinar in March where we'll go deeper in some of this new functionality, showing how it works in practice, answer questions, and we'll also share a look at the early adopter features so you can see not just what's available now, but where the product is heading next. Invitations and registration details will be shared very soon, so keep an eye out for those. And thank you for taking the time to watch.